I always felt like the black sheep of the family. It's still to this day. I came from two parents who got married because they had to. They were teenagers, so they had no idea what the hell they were doing. And that kind of snowballed into my childhood. I never had anyone's full attention. I was raped at a party, and that was my first sexual experience, was that. And when everybody found out, they believed him, not me. They didn't believe me, and that sucked.
Wow, I'm really sorry to hear that.
I wanted to actually make a change, and here's what I'm gonna do.
From facing personal trauma to becoming a guiding light in the multifamily industry, Tara Samuels has turned her toughest battles into her greatest strength. Known as the multifamily mentor matchmaker, she's helping others find authentic connections in an often rigid corporate world. Her story shows that when we embrace our whole selves, imperfections and all, we can create meaningful change, not just for ourselves, but for entire industries.
I'm gonna take 66 straight days, and I'm gonna post on LinkedIn every single day exactly what I'm feeling at the moment that I post. In the same post, I would reframe it, and I would say, no, you are worthy, and I'm gonna make myself accountable to change my talk. It was the most unbelievable transformation I've ever been through.
I have goosebumps right now. It's a lot to process. Am I gonna tear up right now? I don't know.
Do you have Kleenex?
Yeah.
There may or may not be tears.
Tara Samuels, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to chat with you.
Me too. I was jumping cartwheels on the way here because this is so different to be in person. I love it.
I know it is. I'm super stoked. So, what I want to start with is a little bit about your background. Like, what are the kind of moments in your childhood and your upbringing that has made Tara the way she is?
Do you have Kleenex?
Yeah.
There may or may not be tears. Oh gosh, how far do I back this up?
Start with your earliest memory.
I think my earliest memory is simply just trying to fit in. No coincidence that I'm like redheaded stepchild. I would say that I came from two parents who got married because they had to. They were teenagers, so they had no idea what the hell they were doing. And that kind of snowballed into my childhood. So a very broken family, feeling like I never had anyone's full attention. And then my mother competed with me my whole life. And a pun on the whole apartment thing, but I've evicted her actually from my life. So I've gone through physical abuse, alcohol abuse with the parents. It's been tumultuous. And so I think I always was trying to fit in and be seen. Both parents remarried, and so I have siblings that are half, but I've never had like that full-blood sibling that I've always longed for. So I never really had like that connection, and so I always felt like an only child, even though I wasn't. So I felt like the kid in the class who never really fit into that clique or a certain group, which actually I'm glad, because I don't want to be isolated. I want to kind of be relatable to everybody, but I always felt like the black sheep of the family. It's still to this day.
Why is that? Do you feel like you were different from your siblings and different from your parents?
Yeah, very. They all kind of chose bad paths in their own way, went down, like whether it be, like you have two things you can do. You can either be a product of your childhood, or you can go against it and say, you know what, I'm not going to be a victim to what this was, and I'm going to choose my own path. And so kind of going against the grain made me the black sheep, and a lot of judgment. And I've repaired my relationship with my dad. He's great now, and he's been accountable, but he was just never around. He was like the dad that just cut the check every 2 weeks and was like, well, I was a good dad because you got child support. And so I never really had like a good father figure. And my mom was always off doing what she does. One of my memories, actually, you asked me, like one of the earliest memories was when I was living in Skokie, Illinois, which is like this big melting pot. I'm from Chicago. And she wrote me a note to go pick her up cigarettes all the time. So it would be back, it's back in the day when, like, can you imagine selling cigarettes to a second grader? Yeah, so I had this, I wish I would have kept it, like a little piece of paper. Please sell my daughter, Tara, my maiden name at the time, cigarettes. And I would walk back and have a carton of cigarettes, and I would have to do this, like one of my chores. And that was a real sick way to grow up, to be honest. And they were always drinking. It was just I grew up in a very violent household, very violent households. But I never fell victim to that. I'm a mom now. I would never dream of laying a hand on my child, or sending her to go get cigarettes. You know what I mean?
So, what goes through a second grader's mind when they are going and buying cigarettes? Is it that you don't know any better because that's just what I do? Or is it like there's something weird and wrong here?
So definitely weird and wrong, but I make a joke now, but like I was forced to go to private Catholic school for a long time, and so you obey your mom and dad. Whatever they say, you obey. And the product of what I grew up in was if you didn't obey, they put a hand on you. So I did what I was told because I didn't have any other options. My other option was to get beat. So it was you either do it or you don't. And you know, this isn't something you talk about at sleepovers, right? You don't sit there as you're playing light as a feather, stiff as a board, and doing each other's hair at girl sleepovers. You don't talk about this stuff. Like, I kept that stuff silent, but I knew it wasn't normal. Like, there was no way my friends were having to do this. It was just ass backwards, really.
Did you talk about this at all as you got older? When did you start talking about this?
I'm trying to remember, like, I think when I felt safe enough to have a close friend who, you know, I don't let a lot of people in right away. I have this outward appearance that I have my shit together because we all try to have that outward appearance, whether it be on social media or LinkedIn or whatever. And so it took time for me to find a trusted friend who maybe shared first what they were going through. And then I felt safe enough to say, oh, okay, well, here's my shit story. Yeah. And then I've been married before. So like talking to your spouse and letting it kind of come out naturally, but I don't wear a sign that says like, hey, let's look at this crazy childhood I had. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm just trying to...
It's a lot to unpack,
process,
isn't it?
I'm just trying to process and imagine, you know, what all of that feels like, right? I mean, that's heavy, right? You're in second grade, you're walking to the store, the cashier is probably looking at you like, what is going on? He's probably thinking like, there's something wrong here.
Yeah.
You're an innocent second grader, basically forced to, you know, evolve yourself into going and buying cigarettes.
In a Catholic uniform, by the way, most times, because I'd come right back from school. And so it was like, I'm supposed to have this innocence, number one, being a child, but also like in Catholicism, like, you know, you are supposed to be pure. And, you know, and here I am going in doing these crazy tasks for my mom, who's just, off the rails, basically.
So you talked a little bit about, if you're open to sharing, you know, physical abuse and alcohol abuse, like, what would warrant that?
So here's a story that most people are like, you're joking. I grew up with a stepdad for probably he was in my life 13 years. And do you ever remember drinking Kool-Aid?
Yeah.
Okay. So Kool-Aid was a thing in our house, or Tang. But Kool-Aid, you had to have sugar, the ice, the water, and then you had the packet. So I was responsible for making Kool-Aid, and it was whatever my stepdad picked, like, for that flavor. And if I did not make the Kool-Aid in order of the way that he wanted, with like the certain ingredients first, I would get beat. Like, that's just what it was. And so that was like one of the last straws for me. And I would watch him like put his hands on my mom. It was a super violent, and for some reason I thought that was like normal. But then I would go to other friends' houses, and I would do everything I could to not be at home. So I started working at a very young age to escape that. So another handwritten note, my mom let me work at McDonald's when I was 13, and I never stopped working after that. So back then you could work without having like those early child labor laws and stuff, but I just didn't want to be home. So that's why I think work is so ingrained in me, that hustle. And because that's where I found purpose. I didn't find purpose at home.
You mentioned you have half siblings. Did you grow up with them in the same household?
Two of them I did, but you know, there's such an age gap that I didn't really feel like I grew up with them. We were close for like maybe a little bit when I was younger. But like one of my half siblings is 16 years younger. So I was almost like a parental figure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's tough. Like I've always longed for that full blood sibling. Never had it. Nothing against my half siblings. And when I grew up, I didn't say this is my half sister. I would just say this is my sister. But we never formed like the bond that you would want in your American dream house with the fence, the dog, and the 2.5 kids. It was just different.
So you processed, it sounds like you took on work at an early age to help you process and cope
Yep.
with things. What else did you do to like process emotion? Because it sounds like you didn't talk about this with your friends.
No. Ironically, I connect so much with music and driving. And it's been difficult because I was working from home way before it was a thing with COVID. And the way I could kind of let my emotions come out is just being in the car by myself, connecting to certain kind of music. And I have my favorites, but like music triggers me in so many ways. And I was grounded so much. I was grounded so much as a child that it's like a quote in my yearbook. Like, what's your favorite memory of high school? I don't know. I was always grounded. Like, it's literally on page whatever in my yearbook. And so the only way to kind of cope for me was music. I wish I could play. I've always wanted to like play an instrument or sing or whatever, but like I have an old soul. So like music to me was like Fleetwood Mac, Peter Gabriel, Pink Floyd, like all of this like kind of classic rock vibe. And so when I got mad, I would just get in my car. And if anyone knows Chicago, 94 is like our main thoroughfare. And I'd get on 94 and drive as fast as I could and cry. I don't even know how I would like not crash. I'd be crying so hard to just get the hell out of the house. So that was how I released my emotions. And that's why to me, like the moment I walked in here, like music, I'm like, yes, it's like, I want to have that like mood lifting, just that spirit, that energy, right?
Yeah,
So,
I really relate with that because I also grew up in a household of music. My dad and mom loved music. We would throw a bunch of parties growing up, and they'd always throw music on. When they were cleaning the house, there'd be music.
Love that.
A couple months ago, I went to a reggae on the river, which
So
is like
fun.
a reggae concert with me, my mom, my dad, and my 2 siblings.
Oh my God.
So music has always been, ironically enough, I like music, but I haven't been like the person that like knows all the songs and knows the artists. And I like music because it makes me feel comfortable and it can change my energy. And similar to you, growing up, I was bullied a fair amount.
Really?
And I ended up in 8th grade. I ended up getting into a fight with one of my friends, and that kind of turned into, he was a popular kid, and that turned into, the next day the whole grade basically not talking to me. So for 2 months in 8th grade, I didn't have any friends. And I was actually talking to a friend about this yesterday. I couldn't walk around because what they ended up doing, my last name is Gettu. Mm-hmm. And they created this acronym called Gettu is gay. I'm not gay, but it was GIG. And they would write it on their casts. They write it in swim class. And I remember thinking, I lived an hour away from school, and every morning I would listen to the Don't Worry, Be Happy song by Bobby McFerrin.
Bobby McFerrin, yes.
And that was like my first entrance into like using music to like change my mindset. Mm-hmm. Right? So I kind of saw it very similar to you. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, I'm sorry for what you went through. Being bullied is like no joke. And it reminds me there was a period of time, like if we're going to get heavy in this conversation, I'm just going to lay it all out there. But because this is humans and multifamily, right? There was a period of time in high school where I was ostracized completely because I was at a party. And I was the girl that was the designated driver, never drank, never smoked, never did anything. I was the goody two-shoes because, I grew up in Catholic school and that's what you had to do. But I won't name names, obviously, but I was raped at a party. And that was my first sexual experience, was that. And when everybody found out, they believed him, not me. And so there went my entire high school career, is they were like, well, you're lying, because he was a prominent, popular person. And so immediately, and when I finally had the courage to tell my mom, she didn't believe me either. She said it was my fault because of what I was wearing. So that's like, to me, silence is bullying, right? Like being ostracized and not being seen or having people believe you, that's a form of bullying. So I feel like I share in that experience of just like feeling less than or not seen or bullied, even though they didn't name call necessarily. They didn't believe me. And that sucked.
Wow, I'm really sorry to hear that.
Listen, we're digging in, right?
We are digging in. No, yeah,
Yeah.
it's so crazy how humans work. Like when I was going through that as well, I remember basically walking around. Everywhere I walked, I knew that people were like trying to make fun of me or trying to like, jeer me. And I remember thinking that the only safe place was in the bathroom. So I would like spend time in the bathroom, sometimes with a few friends that, there were a couple of people that didn't like go into that whole thing. It was really the whole grade. It was actually the whole grade when I say that, because it was like 120 kids. And I remember during like recess and lunch, being in the bathroom felt safe because nobody could like say something to me, or I knew people weren't like snickering in the hallway about me. And yeah, so I like definitely, it's interesting because I also think about how so much of who we are is driven by these experiences, right? Like sometimes we as humans think that we're controlling our lives, like we're in the driver's seat. But in reality, like these experiences, then the way they morphed you and your, the inner child, that whole thing, that's really driving you. Like that's in control of you. And if you don't build awareness of what is driving you, you're just going to be on autopilot for the rest of your life, 100%. Right? You're going to let your insecurities, you're going to let your fears, you're going to let your trauma like really control who you are. So that's been a learning over the last, 5 years of my life, is like, I've largely been driven by insecurity, right? Like I started this company and I started a lot of things because of the fear of not feeling enough, right? If I wasn't producing, where was my value coming from?
Exactly.
So I felt like if I wasn't doing work, if I wasn't contributing, then I was worthless. And
we share that in common.
Okay. Yeah. And I wasn't aware of that. That's the funny thing, is like when I graduated, I remember there was this app called Fishbowl, which was this like, if you worked in consulting, I worked in consulting.
Yeah.
It was like this anonymous app where you could like share your feelings and people would share stories and salaries and all this stuff. And I remember there was this really popular post in that app called like Insecure Overachievers. And I remember reading that and being like, that's funny. I'm not that, you guys, like, sorry for you, but I'm not that. That's not me. And like, as I like have built awareness, I'm like, oh wow, that's definitely
totally
me.
You.
That's totally me. Right.
I'm curious about the bathroom thing, because I can kind of relate to what you're saying about being safe. Do you ever feel triggered when you go into a bathroom, a public restroom, with some of those moments?
So I haven't, in some ways, if anything, it would trigger me positively.
Okay.
Because like it felt safe, right? Because I would hang out there and it was like isolating.
Yeah.
I actually never thought about this. I was talking to a friend yesterday about the story, because sometimes when I tell this, I've never spoken about this like on air or anything like that. But when I recall a story, I've had friends actually. I'm friends with all the people that did that. So the happy ending of that story is 3 months later. 3 months later, everybody, all of them, like came into a classroom. All 13 of them. I still remember this really clearly. During recess or during a break, and then unanimously or united like said, "I'm sorry," and like I became friends with all of them,
amazing.
and it was a happy ending, and
I love
friends
that.
with all of them, and they, it's really interesting because over the years they've apologized to me. Like in college, I would get random messages being like, "Dude, I'm so sorry. I was just thinking about, that whole 8th grade thing, and I'm so sorry for doing that to you," and that's like, and I have no I hold no, I don't hold, like, I don't have any like anger with them, or I don't hold any animosity because we were so young,
Yeah.
right? It's just so interesting how like these few events just have such a strong impact. But you were saying, did you feel triggered when you go into an environment that reminds you of something?
I get triggered in weird ways. So there was a like in the era where I grew up, it wasn't uncommon where if you got not like I'm not saying everyone got abused in their childhood, but like it wasn't uncommon to like if you were in trouble, someone was pulling off their belt to hit you with the belt or the wooden spoon, or you get soap in your mouth, or like for me it was a luxury to get to choose the soap. Like, okay, here's some soap we have in the house. Which one would you like your mouth washed out with? I sometimes will get triggered if I see a certain soap brand. I will get triggered when I see a 2x4 sometimes because my stepdad carved my name into a 2x4. And he never actually hit me with it, thank God, but he would keep it there or grab it and show it to me or kind of hold it up as like a threatening measure. Sometimes like those weird things. So lava was the soap that was like the worst. And so that's like a very manly, like almost like high grade, like mechanics would use it to like get grease off their hands. If I ever see that in a grocery store or something, I find myself kind of getting triggered and going to like that shitty part of my childhood. But for the most part, I've gone to therapy and I'm trying to like work through a lot of it. It still creeps up. Certain songs will, I'll remember the violence at like the kitchen table and like seeing two drunk parents when, another brick on the wall from Pink Floyd plays or something like that. It doesn't mean I'll never listen to Pink Floyd. It just means that like those are moments where I just get triggered. So I think I handle them differently than I used to. Before I would escape them, hence the let me get in the car and drive far away. Now I'm a little bit more apt to recognize like that it wasn't about me, it was about them. And I've given myself permission at this stage in my life to allow people in or not allow people in. And giving myself permission that if you don't bring me joy, you don't deserve Tara, right? So you're out. And so that's what I did with my mom. She's out 5 years now, it's been, or 5.5. So will I let her back in? No idea. Probably not. But this is where I'm at today.
And sometimes you have to draw that line.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to just like protect your own interests. And the thing that, when I was talking about like what is driving your life, the thing is the reason why I feel like people can't change or it's difficult to change is if you don't have the awareness of what's driving you,
Yeah.
you can't change, right? Like let's say, you and I get into a fight or something and you're frustrated with something I'm doing and I like don't want to lose you as a friend, or I don't want to lose you, let's say, as a partner or whatever it was, you like will immediately be like, oh no, I can change. I'm sorry, I can change. But the thing is, over the next week, 2 weeks, a month, I'll revert to the mean.
Yeah.
And it's usually because I haven't attempted to change the like underlying driver, right? Like why am I somebody that reacts emotionally? Why am I impulsive? Why do I have anxiety?
Right.
You have to like really understand that. And if you can understand that, then you can change. And I think similarly, if you're trying to repair a relationship with somebody, whether it's your mom, it's your sibling, it's your significant other, it's your friend, you can't repair the relationship if they don't see what's driving them and they don't make a very intentional effort to change that driver.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And a lot of people are shocked too when they're like, what do you mean you don't talk to your mom? Like and there's times where I found myself like trying to defend my decision. And then I'm thinking, why am I defending my decision to anybody? Like, this is my decision, right? So like I'm owning my peace, right? Like I want peace in my life, and this is one way that I know that I get to own that. And it wasn't until I met my husband, ironically, that I felt that empowerment. I always felt like, oh, well, it's just my mom. He's like, why are you defending her? And I'm like, it's my mom. And he's like, you don't just because she's your mom or your blood relative doesn't mean you have to take this. And I was like, that needed to sink in for a couple of years. And then I felt empowered enough. Someone close to me had to tell me, like, hey, you don't deserve this. And then I was like, you're right, I don't. I don't know if I would have evicted her. That's the word I use. I don't know why, but I don't know if I would have done that had I not met Rob, my husband. I have no idea if I would have felt the strength on my own, because I didn't. I was taking it for so many years. It was just ridiculous. So I'm trying not to defend my decision. Like, I want to be able to own more of my decisions and not have to defend them so much.
How about with your stepfather?
I don't even know if that guy's dead or alive. So speaking of alcohol, like, I have such a, I grew up with it with my grandparents and like everyone. I remember clear as day, there was a Mexican restaurant. I was 16 years old and I took my mom and I said, Mom, we need to go. She loved happy hour. I'm like, let's go to happy hour at La Hacienda and I need to talk to you about something. And I literally said to her, if you do not divorce this man, you will never see me again. And I'm in the middle of high school. And she actually took it seriously. Which I was shocked. There was a soft side to her that I happened to find that one day. Maybe it's because she had a margarita. I don't know. But I said, I will not allow this man to put his hands on me anymore. So it's either me or him. And she was a secretary. She didn't make much money. And I understood that she needed him financially. I could respect that. But I also said, I think that's when I started being really resourceful. And I'm like, we will figure it out. We will figure out a way. I am working. If you need my money to help support us finding a new place to live, like, I'll do it. And she divorced him. Thank God. But I have no idea where that guy is. No idea. Even with the world of like social media, I've never seen, like, I have no idea. And I don't want to. No clue. And it's funny, my half siblings, their dad, it's their true father. They don't have a relationship with him either. But he never laid a hand on them. Only me. Because I wasn't his. He never touched his kids. So, yeah, I have no idea.
You knew that growing up.
Yeah.
Did that have an impact in?
I don't think so. Like, I would never want what I went through to anyone to go through. So, I think I could have gone down the road of like resenting them, and I didn't. If anything, I was protecting them. I would rather him touch me than them because they were younger. They were more innocent, I was older and, I took on that older mentality of like, I can take it. I'll take one for the team. I didn't want them to be hurt. So, and I think I could have resented them, and I wanted to make sure that they were safe. So it's kind of like the mother instinct, right? Like, if you touch my kid, I'm coming after you. But like, I'd rather take one than watch someone younger, especially your child or your sibling, go through that. I think that's maybe the older, where I am in the birth order, maybe that's a big part of it. Mm-hmm. I'm definitely true to my sign, Capricorn. I'm definitely true to like the older sibling. But it's interesting, but they see how much of an asshole he was. And so they're like, we don't want a relationship with him either. I don't know how much they remember growing up of what they witnessed, but they witnessed it all. So it's crappy, honestly.
Is there anything that you've learned from them that was positive?
From my siblings?
From your siblings or your parents?
That anyone can change, because I'm learning that people deserve a second chance because they all went down a really bad path, each one of them. Bad decisions, drugs, alcohol. One was a teen mom. One's with a guy that's questionable. So I think I just learned that I was very, very, very judgy of them because I didn't relate to their decisions because I'd never drank and I had never done drugs. And so to me, I felt like I was judging them, their whole upbringing, and they knew it. And we fought about that all the time. They're like, you're always judging me. And I'm like, well, I am, because you're making really stupid decisions. And they've been in and out of jail, things like that. And I'm just like, but I've seen them, not all of them. My brother is not in my life. He has not turned his life around. But my sisters have turned their lives around. And actually, the teen mom is an exceptional mom now. She's like, I doubted her at first. I really did. Because she had done drugs and she put herself in jail and now she's pregnant. And then I'm like, you're going to suck as a mother, was what I was thinking. And I think they just all taught me that there's room to change. But I've forgiven them, even though they haven't outwardly like apologized. They didn't like necessarily do anything to me, but I think I grew up as a product of just being in, not to harp on my religion, but like as a recovering Catholic, they teach you shame. Like my religion was all about shame. And so I felt like they were shaming the family and I was shaming them. But now I've learned to just, I don't know mentally what they were going through. They, that's their journey. And so I don't really it's not my place to judge. And so I've learned to like, just not be that person anymore. And that they can change. So, and I'm proud of like what they've done and how they've morphed into, they were going through a lot of crap because of their environment. And I think if I really had to hone it in, it would be, I was mad at them because I didn't become a product of my environment. I fought through it and I wish they would have too. But we all have different stories, right? And I just wanted them to be more courageous for themselves and not do drugs and not do all of those things. But,
I just want to say first of all, I have goosebumps right now. But secondly, I really appreciate you sharing, right? It's a lot to, it's a lot to process. Am I going to tear up right now? I don't know. It's a lot to process for anybody at that young age. And I really appreciate this because I think this is going to help a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
Like people are going to listen to your story and feel seen and feel heard. So it takes a lot of courage to share this. So I really do appreciate it.
Well, I mean, finally someone's putting out a platform that is not just about what we do. Because like you said, like so much of who you were and like who I am is like, if I'm not achieving or contributing or whatever, it almost was diminishing my self-worth. But I want, for example, on my way here, we were talking about, I was listening to Jay Shetty. You and I love podcasts, and I love music, but I want to know about the musician because the music that they produce and what they sing and the lyrics, if they write them, is a product of their childhood and their upbringing. So I want to dig into that. Then I'm going to like the artist more and connect to the song more. So finally, someone like you is putting out something that in our multifamily world and in other industries, people are always so like, oh, I have to be the Tara that I am, I need to have my shit together. No, I actually don't. And one day I just grew up and said, I don't care. I don't care. And I started going against the grain. And I keep using LinkedIn because that's like my social media of choice. And I wanted to be the person to not just put the business side of me. I want people to know I'm not going to put some of the deepest stuff on there. I have to be, you have to be careful. But humans in multifamily, we are people first. And our jobs don't define us. And how we get there, I think the journey is more important. And to your point, that's more relatable. I feel way more connected to you now because I know the shitstorm you went through just in 8th grade. That's impactful, and we share a bond of just being bullied in a way, right? So kudos to you for putting a safe platform together. I don't know what happened. This feels like a therapy couch where I'm just I was going to let it out. And I've never done that before. So I think it's just I think part of it is that it's so therapeutic to finally kind of talk about it. And whoever watches this, if they know me or they don't know me, if someone knows me and they don't like me after this, that's cool. But at least I'm kind of being authentic.
Yeah. So on the positive side of relationships, I know you met your husband at at an industry event.
I
I'd love to
did.
hear that story because I haven't heard that story from you.
So they always say that the multifamily industry is so big but small. It's incestuous. Everybody knows everybody. So you got to keep your reputation clean. I was setting up a trade show in Indianapolis. It's the Midwest Multifamily Conference, and that show is a 2-day show. So you really get to know the other exhibitors around you because you've got 2 whole days with these people. And his booth was right next to mine. And at the time, I was working for a staffing agency, and you always share things like if you're hiring, if you know someone, or you get those conversations going. And he says it was love at first sight for him, and I just kept thinking that we found out we knew a lot of the same people, ran in the same circles. He was living in Atlanta, I'm in Chicago, and I'm a friendly person. I'm really outgoing at times, and I just thought he was just being friendly and wanting to use my services, my company's services, to help him find this role that he was hiring for. I had no idea that the entire time he was trying to recruit me for not only the job, but I don't think he knew at the moment that he wanted to be in a relationship with me necessarily, because I was dating some moron at the time. I don't even know who it was, but I was in between a divorce and he was going through his separation. So it was not ideal time, right? I was a single mom, and I was like, there's no way. I felt connected to this guy though in a way that I've never felt connected to anyone before. And I've been married before. Something was different. And I was like, well, I sure as hell can't go to work with this guy if I love him. But we built this amazing friendship, long distance, and we saw each other at other business events in the future. And then we finally realized one day we were just sitting at dinner, and he finally was like, we both just kind of admitted what we were feeling, but didn't really know how to say it. Because I was like, how the hell am I going to date some guy in Atlanta? I live in Chicago. I can't, it's 750 miles away. I can't move my child. He can't move his kids. We're insane. And so for 2 years, we dated long distance, and then we decided that we really wanted to make a stronger commitment. And so we eloped. He has 2 boys. I have a daughter. And the 5 of us eloped. We didn't allow any one person there except for a photographer and then the minister. And we eloped in the Georgia mountains, and we decided, the 5 of us as a family, that we were ready to kind of take that next step. But you know what sucked is that when it was all over, I had to go bye, and I left and went back to Chicago, married, and we continued that for 3 more years. I had to wait until my daughter graduated high school, and then I finally moved here. So I've only been in Atlanta a couple of years. But people are like, you're fucking crazy. I'm like, yep, sure am. But it was the grittiest, most tenacious thing I've ever done and that he's done. And we've just, when you make a commitment, you make a commitment. And our motto is parents first. And so in fact, my husband, who's fully tattooed, one of his tattoos is about parents first. Because we made a commitment to our kids first before we selfishly, went into our relationship. We didn't want to make it easy for us. We wanted to make it easy for them. So.
Why did you connect with him?
Because he was the first person who called me out on my shit, meaning he challenged me. He saw things in me that I didn't see in myself. He believed in me in a way that I didn't believe in myself. He loved me for all of my imperfections. And I'm big on humor, and I'm not that serious. So I can be serious if I need to be, but we're human beings at the end of the day. Yeah. And I have some pretty good jokes, and he laughed at my shit, and it was he's like, you're funny, and I'm like, I know. So he appreciated my very transparent Tara-isms. I cuss on occasion, I'm listen, it's just who I am. And he accepted all of me, but we still have arguments, and in the arguments I sit there and I'm frustrated because I'm like, I know he's right, but I don't want him to be right because there's still times that I'm dealing with stuff from my past that will get triggered, it'll surface up, and he calls me out on it. Not to be an asshole, but he'll call me out on it for more of like self-awareness. And no one ever really stood up to me like that and said like, let me change your perception, or let's think about that a different way. And I don't know why people didn't say it before, but he has taught me what the word vulnerability means. He's really big on Brene Brown and vulnerability in general. We always joke that he's the woman of the relationship. And he's just teaching me to be softer. But like, it's not like he saw all of that at the trade show that one moment, but he told me that he thought I was really smart and just engaging, and the rest was history. I felt at peace when I met him, if that even makes any sense. I don't even know how to describe it. So.
Yeah. I imagine peace and maybe just like safety, or just like this person.
I could trust him with any part of my past, and knew that number one, he wouldn't judge me, and number two, that he would take like those broken pieces of me and help me put them back together. Like, I just instinctually knew that about him. And if you're going to talk to a guy who talks about his two kids the way he did, and was like, same as me, adamant that he wasn't going to disrupt their life just because we fell in love, that's a guy to be respected. You know, like, he truly put his kids first, and our morals and our moral compass aligned, and that's what matters. So we put in the hard work. 5.5 years. I mean, Delta loves us. We put a lot of miles in the air to go back and forth. And we saw each other probably every 10 to 14 days. But it does help when you work in the same industry, because you see each other at the same conferences. So, like, we can go to OpTech together and, like, see each other. But then we'd have to fly home and be like, bye. And we've worked together twice, actually, which a lot of people... Some people know, some people don't. Once I reported to him, and once we worked together as colleagues, and it worked great. But I think we're done working together, because we also live together, and we both work from home, so we need some space.
What's been the surprising challenges of this relationship, or relationships in general, that you've kind of uncovered over the last 5 years? Like, what was unexpectedly challenging?
Being vulnerable. It's still to this day the hardest thing for me, and I think it's because I was never able to be vulnerable as a child without feeling criticized or judged or even reprimanded for being soft. One example is when I had my daughter, my mom was in the delivery room, and she completely scolded me. We got into an argument because I got an epidural. She's like, that's weak. Just showing any sign of vulnerability to her was weakness. And so I was trained, basically, that if you did anything where it wasn't I'm not even joking. I also love home staging, and I've had a home staging business. You'll catch me carrying a couch by myself, because she taught me that if you don't need a man, you don't need anyone's help. And so that stuck with me for 40 plus years. And here I am trying to be vulnerable, and my husband's like, you should have seen my face every time he tried to get the door for me. I'm like, why are you getting the door for me? He's like, because I'm a Southern gentleman. And I'm like, I don't need you. I don't need you to do that. I can open the door myself. He's like, I know you can. Like, you know how many arguments we've had because he wanted to just open the door for me?
Wow.
Because I was taught that you don't need a man and that you don't need anyone to help you. And so, I mean, literally the theme is vulnerability. And I'm feeling that I need it again, so I've done some of my own projects to try and bring that out of me and be okay with it. I do hear that most people struggle with that. It's common, men and women, and a lot of men surprisingly struggle with it. Mm-hmm. So it's something I practice every day, but I'm also really shitty at it. But I'm getting better.
Yeah, I relate to the you don't need anybody to help you thing. I grew up as I am a middle child.
Oh, okay.
And this is another thing that I've uncovered. I'm just sharing everything for some reason.
I love it.
But I didn't know, like people would say this whole middle child syndrome thing, and I didn't really like, again, I wasn't aware of it, or I didn't really notice it affecting me. But as I've kind of thought about it more, to try to understand like why I feel like, oh, I don't really like need this person, or I don't need these people to like, I can just like do things myself. I don't really need it.
Yeah.
I realized like it probably was because they say most of your personality is morphed from like 0 to 6 or something, right? And growing up, my grandparents, on my mom's side moved in with us, and I remember that a little bit, but what I remember, to no fault of their own, and again, like everybody has their own experiences, it was very obvious that they favored my sister and my brother, right? Like my brother was the youngest. He was, I would always get blamed for like, bullying him or whatever. And in some cases, maybe I was, but in many cases I wasn't, because he would just like cry, right? He would just be like very dramatic. Right. And then all of a sudden it'd be like, Shiv, like, why are you doing that? And I remember this a little bit. And then my sister was the older one who was very, goody two shoes and really connected with my grandmother. And I remember like kind of feeling a little bit just like, oh, like I don't really need, like, I don't need this attention, or I don't need this, like, I can just do things on my own.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, I didn't remember what age they lived with us, but I messaged my mom, like, I think this was like 3 weeks ago, and when I was talking to a friend about this, because I was trying to understand this a little bit more. And I asked my mom, I was like, when did, like, our grandparents live with us? And she was like, 1999 to 2002. And that was like when I was like 4 to 7 or whatever. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Like, that probably has more impacted me than I even realized.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy because I feel like I just have a very deep desire to like understand myself, right? And so much of it is unknown, right? Like, this is a whole new thing that I've gone about my life not really even thinking about. Like, because my parents would ask me over the years, and I always found it weird, like, did you ever feel like you were neglected because of, the grandparents thing? And I was like, no, I didn't feel anything. And they would ask me that.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, and then my dad would say like, oh, I always tried to like make sure that you got attention. And I never felt it from my parents. My mom and my dad are so sweet. My mom is the most warm person that like you can ever meet. So I never felt it from my parents, but they would ask me that, and I would wonder like why. And then I put this together, and I was like, huh, that's interesting. So I don't know. I just think it's so important for people to really understand why they are the way they are. Because you just don't want to go through life like not understanding yourself and then just like running on autopilot, right? Because then you want to be in control of your life, right? Like, you want to know why you're doing things. You want to know how you can change. You want to know what is driving you.
It's a scary thing, because it takes different stages and different, life triggers to kind of get you, because it's kind of like you can't get somebody to stop doing something. They have to want to stop doing it, whatever that is. So if you want to really get to know yourself, you have to almost give yourself permission to accept all of that. And I think maturity plays into that, and how you grow up and where you are at that stage in your life to really accept that part of you. And it's taken me a long time to get there. I didn't want to acknowledge a lot of it. I worked so much that I could not think about it, So like, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to acknowledge a lot of that. So I think it's great if you can get to that point to get to know yourself, forgive yourself, whatever that looks like, accept all of those pieces of you. But man, it takes some time and some maturity to get there, because some people don't want to see or remember that. Most people suppress all that, and they're just like, sweep it under the rug and pretend it never happened. And then it will bubble up at some point. It always does. It comes out in your relationships, work, personal. But like, it's good at your age that you're accepting that you want to know, that you want to be self-aware, because it takes people a lot longer to get there, just depending on your environment, right? How you grew up.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Okay. maybe we could talk a little bit. We could move. We could
get out of the deep end, right?
Yeah, let's get out of the deep end. Let's talk about more fun things. So
Okay.
you, Project 66 is like a cool thing that I recently learned about. Like, tell us about that. What is that?
So vulnerability, right? We're getting
always
back
find
to that
ourselves back
piece. Yeah. It's one of those things where being self-aware, Rob has taught me a lot about recognizing when I needed to be vulnerable. And through COVID, we all went through some things mentally, right? Because that was such a tough time on everybody, and you had more time with yourself and you didn't have as much outward connection. And I found myself having such awful talk, like just in my head. For example, if I'm making coffee and I spill coffee grounds on the floor, I'm like, you are such a fucking idiot. Like, I would talk to myself like that all the time. If I'm putting on an outfit that I think should make me look good and feel good, I'm like, look at your fat thighs, or look at your, you have a big ass. Like, this is how I'm talking to myself full time. And I never realized how much I was actually saying it out loud. And if my daughter was around me or anyone else was around me, they're hearing this, and finally it just got to a point where I was like, this is awful. I would never go up to somebody and be like, you're an idiot. You're so stupid. You're fat. You're that. But I was doing it to myself all the time, and multiple times a day. And I remember, I don't like to read. I'm a podcast person. I like magazines because I love home staging and home magazines. Somehow I ran across Atomic Habits, which I saw you just finished a couple months ago.
Yep.
So James Clear wrote this book, and the piece that I took away that was the most impactful is everyone says that a habit can be formed. Maybe it's 3 weeks. All these different data points suggest a certain time frame. He said 66 days. For whatever reason, that stuck with me. And I said to myself, yes, I could go to therapy and my therapist can help me like get out of this negative shit talk. But for me, I didn't want to like journal about it and secretly tell my therapist. I wanted to actually make a change. And to me, the only way to make a change was to actually put it publicly out there. And since I was trying to be more vulnerable on LinkedIn and allow like the other side of me, the non-business side, to come out, I said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take 66 straight days and I'm going to post on LinkedIn every single day exactly what I'm feeling at the moment that I post. Sometimes the post had a picture. In fact, most had a picture. And I would be real and type exactly what I knew I was thinking in that moment. And then in the same post, I would reframe it and I would say, no, you are worthy and you are beautiful and you are these things. And then I would come up and I would name that day a word. So the very first post that I did, I'll never forget this dress. My daughter and I usually do mother-daughter pictures. And I'm wearing this like brownish camel colored suede dress. It's really cute and I felt really great. And it was a beautiful fall day in Chicago. And we're looking at the proofs. We get the pictures back. And I'm sitting on a blue chair in this dress. And it looked great. The sun was out. And the first thing I look at was, I'm like, oh my God, I can see a fat roll in my stomach. And I remember my daughter was like, Mom, like, is that really the first thing that you see? And to me, that was a problem. That I'm going to sit there and self-sabotage and criticize everything about that picture, even though the moment and the experience is what I should have been focused on. So I remember saying, not only did I have a fat roll in my stomach, but like I didn't have my nails done. Like right now, I don't have my nails done. I criticized myself and all kinds of things. I don't even know if I shaved my legs that day. Like, let's just be honest. I have no idea. And I said, you know what, this is going to be, I'm going to call it Project 66, and I'm going to make myself accountable to change my talk. And it was the most unbelievable transformation I've ever been through. And what I loved about it is that I did it, not a therapist told me to do it, or it wasn't like my homework. And so I got so many messages privately from people saying, because like by day 9, I'm still shitty. Everything's still kind of crappy. By like the third week, I started feeling a change. Halfway, I started like really having struggles coming up with negative things. Then I'd go through something else, or something would happen at work, or something would happen at home, and I'd start going down the rabbit hole again. By the time the 66 days was done, and I strategically did this throughout the holidays, so I started at mid-November, and then I came out of the new year kind of a changed person. And it transformed my relationships 100%. I became raw with myself and with others, and people literally, do you know how many men messaged me and was like, oh my God, I can relate to that, or I feel this way too. And I'm like, what do you mean? You're like a VP or a CEO. You're not supposed to feel that way. And they're like, says who? And I'm like, okay, that's actually a really good point.
Yeah.
Like, who am I to say that you can't feel that way? So a couple years have gone by, and this year has been a shitty year for me. I have found myself on the way here, I'm doing it. Like, just like, redheads shouldn't wear pink. Like, I'm saying all this kind of shit in my head that I'm like, why am I even saying this to myself? You are a mess, Tara. Like, so I said to myself, one, I'm going to turn this into a speaking engagement and tell other people about it. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. We all face negative stuff going on up here. Two, I need a reboot. And so what I decided to do is launch it, Project 2.0, make it more of a group thing and have people join me to feel safe and maybe feel supported. I'm going to launch it on the same day that I launched it a couple of years ago to make sure I get through the holidays in one piece. But I have not had more. There are an insane amount of people who have messaged me privately who have just like, I don't know where I would be if you didn't publicly come out about that, or I feel that way too. It was a whole like Me Too thing. And I was like, damn, I thought I was just doing this for myself. And I actually put in the post, in each post, I'm not doing this for attention. I'm not doing this for you to give me an attaboy. That's not what I'm looking for. It was pure, raw accountability. And it was all inspired by Atomic Habits. And I had enough. And clearly I need a reboot, because if I'm coming here to have a real conversation and I'm saying some shit on the way here, like, what the hell? What's wrong with me? You know, so like I need to do it again. So I'm ready to do it and have maybe a group of people do it with me. And if no one joins, I don't care, I'm doing it again. I've turned this into a speaking engagement. I've spoke on it last month, and I'm on my way to New York next week to speak on it again. And so I want to be able to use this as a platform for other people. Doesn't matter how big your company is. I want to teach people about how to not sabotage yourself. So that's a very long-winded answer, but that's where it all kind of came from, vulnerability.
What other podcasts have been that we talked about, the On Purpose, Jay Shetty's one. What else do you use to learn?
Because I love to cuss, I love Mel Robbins, because she is unapologetically her. I love Brene Brown because she's relatable, and it helps inspire me into the relatability. My most favorite one that's like on repeat is the Mindset Mentor. Mentorship is a massive passion of mine, but this guy, Rob Dial, his episodes are like 20 minutes or less, which I love. I've got ADHD and I don't really have a very good attention span, but he can like wrap it up. He also cusses. I just want people to be real.
Yeah.
Like, please don't stand up and give me corporate bullshit, because I will not relate. And if you sat here and told me that you have all your shit together, I'd be like, I don't believe you, and I would not trust you.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I relate to people who just throw it all out there and who can talk about their worst days and don't, even if they're like a celebrity, please don't try to act like you have it all together. So I relate to those types of podcasts. So those are like my ones on repeat. And then I throw some fun ones in on occasion, like a home staging one, but...
The thing is, if you act like you have all your shit together, like you're also just like, you're kind of like negatively impacting people, right? In
So
some
true.
ways, because you're like creating this like false illusion, and then they're looking at themselves and being like, oh, like, why don't I have my shit together?
Right.
It's kind of like Instagram when you look at all these like nice pictures and this person's going on this holiday, you like reflect back and you're like, wait, why am I working so hard? Or why do I not?
Yeah.
Which is like, just like not, you know, I don't know. It's like not, it's obviously not true. And that's why I'm so passionate about podcasts in general, is I think it's really this not new, but like burgeoning medium of vulnerability where like you can hear from these like famous people, and rather than very highly curated, sit down formal media content, it's like, hey, you can actually now there's a platform where you can actually share. And oftentimes I think episodes like this are going to inspire like people way more, right? Because then you relate, like you said,
Yeah.
you understand. It's like, okay, I'm a human, you're a human, we're all like going through this human experience. Like
Right.
we make mistakes, we do good things, we do bad things, and that's just like life, right?
Yeah.
And you're like trying to be the best person you can. And yeah, I like really appreciate you like sharing all this. I really do.
Thank you. It's why I like not to be weird, but it's why I like ripped jeans, because it's like a reflection of life, right? Or if you are at an event and somehow you accidentally stain your shirt, like don't freak out. Just be who you are. Like, oops, oh God, you're human. But I like the symbolism of, and I keep trying to decide, like the first time I spoke, I did not wear ripped jeans, and I was like, oh, maybe that's too much. But then I'm like, wait a minute, then I'm not like being me. But I like the symbolism of, if I feel comfortable in them and they have some holes, I like them for like the flawed thing that they are. It makes me feel good. And it's also kind of symbolically making me more transparent. You could see more of me, right? So like I like the symbolism of a ripped pair of jeans and what that means to be authentically you, instead of like if I showed up here in a suit or like a really buttoned up no. Like, I know we're just like getting to know each other, but you would have probably sensed that I was uncomfortable or awkward or like I wasn't feeling my true self. Like I think that I'm just learning to just own all of me. And if I feel good in this, now granted, if you're in a certain business event and they don't accept that, cool, I get that. But like for everything else, I just want to be me, and I'm starting to embrace that more. And I think I have an obligation as a parent to do that. Because I'm a mom, a stepmom. We hate the word stepmom. They call me ladder madre, stepmom instead of, I don't know, we're weird. But like, I have an obligation. Even if I didn't have kids, I have an obligation. Anytime somebody puts one piece of content out on social media, whatever your platform is, you're doing silent mentorship, whether you know it or not, because someone is being affected by what you post. Good, bad, or indifferent, you have an obligation. You got to own it. So whatever that is that you're putting out there, you better own that shit. That's where I'm at. So this is why I'm in some ripped jeans instead of a suit.
I like it. Okay. Wow. We've covered so much. With the matchmaking and the mentorship and all of that, maybe you can just tell us about what that is. And then I think also more interestingly, like why it's important to you.
One of the things my husband has taught me is never to make assumptions. That's another one that I'm working on. I always made an assumption that everybody had a mentor. I was fortunate when I was it was back in the 90s. I had my first big girl job in Chicago at a real estate auction firm. And there's a guy who completely transformed my entire life. His name's Mike Fine. And he became my first mentor before I even knew what a mentor was. Mentorship means something different to everybody. And he, in fact, took on a fatherly role. I was in his life for up until last year. He passed away last year, but he was the single most, because I didn't have a male role model, he was the single most impactful person that ever entered my life aside from my husband, who, and my real dad in ways, he still does. He has affected me. I'm not saying he didn't do a good job, but Mike Fine gave me like a business side. And I assumed everybody had a mentor like him. And for years and years and years, I was sitting on this idea. I'd be on LinkedIn and be like, man, I'm hearing so many people ask about mentorship, or they're trying to find ways of how to find a mentor. And I've had 2 people specific to multifamily who have mentored me. We didn't arrange the relationship. I considered them my mentor without even saying like, hey, Robert, you're my mentor. Hey, Diana, you're my mentor. They didn't even know, which is why silent mentorship is such a big thing that no one talks about. So finally, one day I decided, I had a networking platform that I built online. I used to do in-person events in Chicago all the time to bring people together in multifamily. Well, once COVID hit, I was like, we need something. We need to connect. I want to find a purpose. And if everyone needs a Mike, fine, I felt like. And he transformed my entire life. And so finally, one day I got out of my own way and I put something out on LinkedIn. And I just was like, hey, if I kind of do like the Tinder of matchmaking for multifamily and mentorship, would anyone like kind of be behind that? And the first person to message me, which by the way, you need to interview this guy, Steve Halsey.
Okay.
If you don't know him, he is a legend in our multifamily industry and someone he's probably the most well-respected guy I've ever met in multifamily. He messaged me and was like, I'm here to support you. I got your back. What do you need me to do? I believe in you. And I was like, whoa, are you serious? Like, I thought I was just going to like throw this out there and everyone would think I was an idiot. And I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to arrange a call and I have no playbook. And I was just praying to God I'd get 10 people to sign up. Like 10 was my magic number. Well, that group started January of last year. We are now over 530 people, which isn't a ton, but this is my project at night and on the weekends. I'm running this mentorship group because I felt like I had to, one, carry on Mike's legacy. Two, I think more people, I think that any industry needs a more approachable way to mentorship. I think mentorship is really intimidating. If I didn't know you, but I admired you, I may not have the personality to be like, hey, Shiv, will you be my mentor? Like, sometimes that could be creepy as hell. You know what I'm saying? It's like dating, though. Like, how do you know if you're going to vibe with that person? So the premise of the group is I will instinctually make matches, but I also put the onus on the person that joins, and everyone fills out a questionnaire so I can get to know them a little bit, because there's so many people who have joined. I don't know them. I've never met them, but I'm going to take care of them. I'm going to provide them this amazing community, and they're going to feel nurtured and seen. And the 3 themes of my group are empower, connect, and thrive. I recognize now that it's a legit group. It's not going anywhere. In fact, it's growing like crazy. And so it just means something to me to change someone's life like that. Because I didn't have that growing up, when I finally met Mike Fine, I was like, everyone needs a Mike Fine. Like, legit, everybody needs one. And I made an assumption that everybody had a mentor. And what will blow you away is the amount of people who have joined that don't have a mentor, who are like 10, 20, 30 years into their career, and they don't have one. And I'm like, what? C-suites who are like, yeah. And I'm like, I thought you almost had to have a mentor to be successful. So it's this assumption that everyone has one, but I'm here to break the mold and make mentorship not conventional. Like, let's blow out the corporate bullshit. Like, let's make it approachable. Let's make it real. I provide a regular platform where people literally can let their guard down. But the onus is on them. When you join, I ask you to pick like 1 or 2 people that you want to be matched with. I go get that permission from the person first. And if they say yes, then I match them, introduce them, and they create their own journey. There's no template. I give them resources like other podcasts that members have been on where they've met and I feel like it's helpful. And then I get the hell out of the way. But then I provide a community where they can come to on a regular basis. We have calls all the time. We have a YouTube channel. Everything's recorded. And we do some after dark stuff, which is if you come in with your AI recorder, you're out. No recordings, off the cuff. These calls, normally somebody's crying. And it's just pure, honest connection. And so I think I'm a natural connector. Parts of me, there's so many people that have told me that I'm magnetic and like that I just make people feel calm. And I'm like, okay, well then that's something I have to do something with that. And my grandmother, right before she passed, I was at her bedside when she died, and she's like, Tara, you have moxie. Don't you ever forget it. You need to do something with that, which basically is her way of saying unapologetically, go make some shit happen. you've got the power and the personality to do something, go do something. And to me, this is how I want to be remembered in multifamily. Like, I want a legacy of mentorship. Yes, I love my job, but I want to be known for people to have, like, to change lives. And the stories have been unbelievable. Stuff that we were on the After Dark call like a week ago, and one of the girls was like, Tara, you don't even know some of the shit that's happened because of this group. I've got to tell you more. And I'm like, really? Like, people are making the magic happen behind the scenes after the introduction, and after I'm just providing the space and the platform. But I have an obligation now to do it. And so it's getting real. It's getting real. And I can't wait to see where it's going to go. But it's been amazing. We're approaching 2 years in January.
That's amazing. I'm so glad that we're speaking about this so people can hear about this and join.
Yeah. And the one thing too, there's so many people that are open to work. I recently had to go through that. That's a very vulnerable situation to put your open to work banner up on LinkedIn. I even tell people, if I see someone open to work, I will private message them and say, listen, I'm not promising you a job. I'm promising you a safe community, a supportive community, to find a mentor that might be helpful in your journey to learn some things. And so you don't even need a job. You just need to be in the multifamily space in some levels. Suppliers, owner-operators, it's open to everybody. And people have been so thankful because I'm very intentional when I reach out to people. And when they decide to spend an hour with me, which is usually the length of a lot of our calls, that's an honor. And when people are like, who's your mentor? I'm like, every person in that group is my mentor because they took a chance on me. That's some real shit right there. Like that's what fills me up and keeps me going, because it's hard work to run this thing. So it's nights and weekends, and I thank God I have a supportive husband who knows my mission, and he's helping me behind the scenes, but I can't stop now. It's real. So,
what else are you working on that you want to share?
Well, Project 66 is going to be launching soon, 2.0. I'm just working on disrupting, if I could just kind of put it general, just disrupting corporate norm. I found a new home in terms of a new job, and this guy, Brad Schwartz, who runs MSB Resources, has the same birthday as Mike Fine. So to me, that was the icing on the cake. I'm working on creatively owning this role, which he's giving me full authority to just disrupt the recruiting space and humanize it, which is why I love your name of your podcast, because I think we need to see beyond someone's job title, someone's resume, and be a partner. We need more partnerships. We need more trust. We need more authenticity. And so part of my title is strategic partnerships. So I'm really trying with everything I do to show vulnerability in our hiring process, in my everyday, in the mentorship group. And vulnerability will always be something I work on. I'm trying to just kind of share that with others and lift the veil, I guess, is like my main theme. Let's lift the veil and show people who you are. I did a project in science, which is weird because I was really shitty at science, but you know those, what do they call it? Science fair.
Science fairs.
I did What's in an Onion That Makes You Cry. And to me, everyone is an onion, but I like to get to like 14 layers in. So what I work on every day, like back to your original question, is getting 14 layers in with the conversations that I have. I don't want to scratch the surface. I want to get into the core. So whatever that means with my relationship as a mom, as a spouse, as a career person, that's what I'm working on. So I don't want to smell like an onion, but I mean, like when you cut up an onion, I still like run and go get gloves.
Yeah.
And my husband's always like, what? And I'm like, because I'm sitting there, I'm crying. But like, if you think about our world and people, we're all an onion. It's the weirdest shit, but like, I want to get 14 layers in. That's what matters to me. And so that's going to reflect in my work and in my relationships.
Tara, thank you.
Thank you
so much for coming on. I did not know what to expect. I did not expect this.
And you're not wearing a seatbelt. You're like, I need to strap in for this one.
I did strap on. I'm like, oh, what did I share now? I blacked out. But you sharing all of this, it's really interesting to see, immediately made me want to share more.
Aw, thank you.
Naturally. And I think that's why vulnerability is important, is like everybody has things that they're going through, and it's almost like you need a invitation to also share, right?
So true.
And this podcast is going to be an invitation for a bunch of people, whether they share it on air, whether they share it with their significant other, whether they share it with their therapist. So I truly appreciate you. I truly appreciate how vulnerable you are, and I can't wait to get to know you and for this to air.
Me
So thank
too,
you.
and thanks for providing the space. Finally, someone who is going to the 14 layers in. If you want to change your name from humans and multifamily to 14 layers in. I'm just kidding, but no, truly thank you for going beyond the surface, because I think we need more of that. So, and you immediately made me feel comfortable, so that's a testament to you. So thanks.
Appreciate it. Thank you.